Hi, good morning again. Today, this is our class number 8, and we'll continue to discuss the subject of Christian worldview, which is a part of the series on understanding Christianity. So there are different ways to approach and to understand Christianity. And you can look and focus on Jesus Christ, which is the center of Christian belief. Or you can discuss the religious doctrines given out by Christian religious leaders or scholars. That's one way. Another way of understanding what the Christianity is. And on this course, we took the approach of trying to understand the Christianity and its worldview. And so far, we have discussed what the worldview is, what the worldview does, and give some examples of Christian worldview here and there. Now, continuing from the last week, we are going to discuss the lesson. Worldview is perceived. Perceived meaning see and take it into you. So that's perception. And some modes of human perception. There are different ways that human perceives the reality. So again, reality is that is what's around you. It could be objects, it could be nature, it could be animals, plants, and people. So people and life is the reality that we are most interested in. So key to our reality is the existence, my existence, and my life, and the people around you, around me. So how then we perceive these things? When we see the things, we categorize. You did not invent this. And the culture that you grow up, it gives to you. The school that you go to study, it gives to you. But between the culture and the school, your parents and your siblings and your friends are the key people who gives you this perception or system of perception or modes of perception. So it's mode, it's kind of category, and you categorize the reality in a certain way, because you cannot say this is a reality and then you cannot communicate or you cannot help others to understand. So people by nature, they divide it, they identify it, they classify it, and give a certain rooms where they fit into. So let's say our reality is rectangular, like this, rectangular shape. And the modes of human perception says you create rooms within the reality. You kind of divide it, and that's you classify you categorize into rooms, and these are by doing so, you conceptualize and you identify. So this is how we create a paradigms. So these are actually the modes or paradigms of human perception common to all the cultures. So every culture and any culture divide reality into these things. Number one, that then matters because people, it's important to have something to eat, something to shelter, and something to wear. So these things are the core ingredients of human existence. But actually, there's something more important than what you eat, what you wear, and how you shelter. And people, they fight, and they give their life to have something to eat. That's true. But people, they give their life for something that is not to feed or to have a place to sleep or to something to wear, meaning there's something more important than what you eat and where you sleep. And that has to do with this, truth and false. People die for, they die to find the truth. And once they find it, when they believe it's truth, they gladly give their life to protect the truth. So truth has that much importance and implication. And see, when you believe that freedom is a very important part of truth, you die for the freedom, and you do certain unthinkable things to protect that freedom. So, truth or false, true or false, that's the very important. So there is something of truth and there is something that is false. Okay, let me ask you a question. Is there a God? Is there a God? Some say yes, some say no. So either yes, whether it's yes or no, one of those answers gonna be truth, while the other is false. If there's no God, and there will be truth. And someone who says that there is God, that's going to be false. But if there is God, then one who's saying there is no God, or God is dead, even though he was there, That's going to be the false statement. So the truth matters. Is a man better than woman? If the answer is yes. Many people in the old days believed yes, man is better than woman in all the areas except childbearing. That was truth in ancient days, but it is no longer. It is considered a false statement when we say, and why do we change that perception? Because the Bible says no human beings are better than the other according to their the gender or their race or age or the power or the position or the riches. So that those things does not count when we talk about the value of a person. A person is a person as a precious being because God created them all equal. See, that's a biblical statement. That's how Christianity believes to be true. So the truth matters. And people die for the truth because it tells who they are, who you are. So truth has to do with who you are and what the people are. Now, then people categorize the reality into something that is absolute and something that is relative. So there are two different worlds, two different realities. So worldview says, this is not just a Christian worldview, but any worldview will say, this is something that is absolute, and this is something related. That means absolute, it has authority, it rules your life, and everyone has to follow it. And it doesn't change no matter what. That's absolute. And the relative, you can have choices. You can have different opinions. So, if, for example, you can wear a light shirt or dark shirts when you come to do the lecture in this school. So that's something related. But absolute is that you are going to have 10 classes for each quarter. And in that classes, you have to do certain things. So that's an absolute. You're not going to change that because it is governed by the state, and the state says these things has to be done. When you say has to be or must be, that's absolute. But when you say you can do this or that, and you may, that means it's related. Life or death. That's something that is absolute. Marriage, something that's related. To olden days, you can get married, or you may not. You can choose to be single, and that's no problem. But some issues, they fight. For example, abortion, the issue of abortion. The Bible says, taking a life, that's murder. Whether it's the starting of life in your womb, or whether it's a full-grown human being, doesn't matter. Life is life, and killing of that is murder. That's pro-life. Pro-choice says it is woman's right to choose whether to have a baby or to abort it. So, which is true and which is absolute? So two different opinions say this is absolute. You cannot do both. So whether either you're going to be pro-choice or pro-life. So that's no longer, it's not something that is relative, it's absolute. So how you categorize these things into the absolute and the certain things to the issue of relative, that's your worldview. Some people believe money is absolute. And some people believe money is not. You can be rich, you can be poor, but there is something much more important. So when you have a choice between the life and the money, or life or possession, some people say possession is absolute and the life is rather relative. When two things contradict and one becomes absolute, the other becomes relative. So what is absolute? Absolute in your life. See, that is a very important question. So when you try to understand someone, or when you try to be a close friend with someone, especially when you try to marry someone, these things are very important, because a lot of marriages break up because they didn't think about these things. Husband believes that to be truth, and if the wife does not believe that to be truth and but false, that's going to cause a breakup. Husband believes the money is more important and absolute, and thus the work is much important than family, while the wife believes that family is absolute and the work is relative, then you have the reason to break up. So these things matters greatly. Christians believe God is the supreme authority, and the Bible is the supreme authority on understanding of our reality and managing our existence. But if your wife does not believe so, then you will have a big issue in your marriage life. Because some say that religion is only religion, and it is not going to affect your marriage life. No, that's not true. Religion is not just a religion, but it's part of worldview, and many times it's the total worldview, and that worldview, it dominates your life. Every detail and every decision of your life is dominated by your worldview. And when you say you're a Christian, and if you're a true Christian, if you're a Bible-believing Christian, if you're born-again Christian, and if you're having the constant growing and maturing relationship through Jesus Christ, then these things matters. What you're going to buy even matters. Where you're going to eat for dinner that even matters. And so these are the choices that you're making according to your worldview. And that's how the worldview is important, and that's why to know what the Christianity is, you gotta understand the Christian worldview. The other way, if you're a Christian and you have to have this worldview, and you have to exercise this worldview, and you live your existence, and you perceive your reality according to this Christian worldview. If you do not do that, then you cannot say you are a true mature Christian. If you're a true and mature Christian, then you know that you know the Christian worldview, and you try to live accordingly. Okay? Then another this objective and subjective is more of a scientific or logical mode of human perception. Sometimes it relates to this mode or paradigm of absolute and relative, because when something is objective and accepted by the majority of people or the society, it becomes more of absolute, while subjective is personal, individual. So you can be subjective, you can like this, you can dislike that, and you don't have to like this, and you don't have to do this. Then it's more of subjective. It's of your own liking. While the objective says it's how everyone sees it, and if you don't do or see or perceive as they do, then you are the odd one. You are abnormal. So objective, you may also say this normal, this is individual or common. So this is objective is common value. Everyone should abide by this objective value or objectivity. While something that's subjective is personal, individual. So the dress code, for example, the school has a certain dress code, and it provides you with objective guideline or objective standard or objective category of defining what's acceptable and what's not. At home, you can wear whatever you want to, or you cannot even wear nothing. That's your subjectivity, and it's your own liking. No one has to, accept your subjective liking, and it does not matter. So that's how we see the world. And the problem is, when this is acceptable, when you say this is acceptable, and that you do not follow that, then you are an outcast. That becomes an issue. Some countries, in some cultures, being a Christian is not acceptable. It's out of absolute. And you're being very subjective. While everyone believes that Allah and the Muhammad, and you believe in Jesus Christ as not only a prophet, but as the Messiah, then you are not falling into this objective category or objective, safe, acceptable person, that you're becoming very subjective. And so that's how these objective and subjective categories or modes of human perception matters. So culture, when in a given culture, usually they share these things: the truth, absolute, and objective. You have to share that. If you do not share that, then you are an outcast. You do not belong to that context or that culture. And when that happens, then you are in trouble. Now, the open and closed. Open and closed, this is a little different. When you're open to the truth, you're open to the absolute, you're open to the objectivity. So when all these things are open, you do not have any guidelines or limitations or rules or law or even principle. Only principle that is going to rule is you are free. But that freedom does not have any objective guidelines. So that's open. And the closed means you have certain rules and you are going to abide within the truth, within the absolute, within the objective, while the relative and subjectivity are open. So you can be in an open culture like in America, or you're in a closed culture like in Saudi Arabia. So these are, relatively speaking, I'm not speaking with the absolute the standard, but relatively, America is more open than Saudi Arabia. Because, for example, the woman, now they can have a driver license, I believe, in Saudi Arabia, but like 3 years ago, they were not allowed to have a driver license. So it's closed rather than open. In America, women and children age over 16, they can have driver license. It's open culture. So that open and closed. So something is open to you, something is closed to you. And you have a certain perception about the things, the reality. And you say, this is permissible, this is open, this is okay, you can do that. And you're free to do that. And when you say that, you are open to that. And when you say you cannot do this, you cannot do that, and then you're closing that possibility. And your choice and your domain is limited. So how open, how wide is your domain or the freedom of choice? So God began his relationship with the human being with a totally 100% open mode or open relationship. God opened every possibility. So the Adam and Eve, they were able to choose to follow and obey God, or choose not to follow and obey God. Because of that, if you have to make a choice, you have to have a certain things to choose from. So the reason God has given the tree of good and evil, and named it good and evil. And then he said, you can eat every fruit out of the trees of this garden of evil. And I'm sure there are thousands and thousands different kind of fruits in the garden of Eden. And in the middle of it, there are two trees. One is a tree of life, and one is a tree of good and evil. And God said, you can eat everything except the tree of good and evil. By saying that, God is giving them a choice. It means it's an open relationship. If that you do not have the option of choice, it's not a free and open relationship. It's a closed relationship. But once God says there's going to be a tree, everything that you can eat, that's your freedom, but you have freedom not to choose to eat. That completes the choice. And by doing that, God makes it an open relationship. So let me give another example. There's a man and woman who is dating. Open relationship says either man or woman, they can say, we no longer fit to one another and let us break up. When you can say that and there's no other consequences because of breaking up, then it is an open relationship. But man says, if you break up with me, I'm going to kill you. At the moment you're saying that, it's going to be a closed relationship. It's not an open relationship. She doesn't have choice to break up. So that's bound and closed relationship. So open and closed that is used in that sense. And any human being and any culture, they perceive the reality and they define their existence by saying open and closed, objective and subjective, and absolute and related, and truth and false. Again, this is the mode of. Then we'll continue with some other modes of human perception. Analytic and comprehensive. Some people like to analyze, break things down into segments and elements and to the tiny bits, and try to understand how each elements are connected together and related and function. So that's analytic. Comprehensive means try to look at the whole thing. So is it's going to be the whole mountain or forest, or is it the trees and grasses? And analytic looks at the trees and grasses, while the comprehensive try to look at the whole mountain and whole forest and the great scenery. So that's an example. And some people are more analytic, while some people are more comprehensive. It depends on, I'm not saying which is better, but these are two different approaches. Some are very scientific, while some are intuitive. Intuitive is more of feeling oriented. You perceive things. You don't study it. There's a certain impression, and you take that impression as your perception. Scientific perspective says you gotta analyze it, study it, and categorize it, identify it, and name it, and classify it, and try to understand the hidden underlying principles. When you approach the things, the reality that way, you're being scientific. And intuitive says it's beautiful, it's dull, it's simple, it's complex. So this is kind of intuitive perception of reality. Okay. Then again, conservative and radical. This has to do with the changes and the futures. Some people does not want to change things. They like the way it is and try to keep the certain things as it is, as conservative. Some people try to does not want to change their value. Absolute is absolute, and they like to abide within this absolute domain. They do not want to travel or go into the relatives or new things. But radicals, they like to go venture into these new areas, new domains, and they like changes. So radical perception says they look at something that needs to be changed, while conservative remains in old ways. And rational and emotional. In the last class, we talked about affective, cognitive, and affirmative. Cognitive person is more rational, while the affective person is rather emotional. Because they're emotional, they see the things with the emotional perception. People, they are intellectual and logical. When they are logical and intellectual, they rather see the reality in a rational way. So, any society, in any family even though you're within just a family and within even same siblings, brother and sister, they are not same. Some siblings are rational while some are emotional. So this happens within the family. So the perception is not the same. Everyone has different perception, meaning everyone has different worldview, because the perception becomes their worldview, and that worldview projects out as their action and decisions and behavior. So when you see a person behave or act a certain way, then you don't think, you don't just say, why would he or she do that? Rather than saying it, you're gonna ask yourself, what is the worldview that causing them to make certain actions, certain words, or certain behavior? Once you do that, you become more rational person, and in good sense. Okay. We're continuing with some other mode of human perception: inductive and deductive. Some people draw conclusion from searching and with a logical argument, and that's inductive. Deductive, you already have a conclusion and you try to support that conclusion and decision. So, same thing. You make a deductive decision or inductive decision. I'm not saying which is better, but personally I'm more inductive person, and I rather do the inductive process of thinking and make an inductive decision. While some others that I know, they make a more deductive decision and deductive process of thinking. So it's a choice. I mean, you cannot say inductive is better than deductive, or deductive perception is better than inductive. Okay, empirical and theoretical. Empirical means you base your perception and decision and your action according to your own experience, or hands-on experience is more important than theory. While the theoretical person rather bases their perception and decision and behavior and in more of a theory. So even if you have not experienced, if theory says yes, then you accept that theory. But there are some people who does not believe in theory, but they have to have their own experience. The Bible, I mean the Christianity as a religion and a system of life and a culture, it demands empirical perception rather than theoretical. So theory is not enough for a Christianity. So if you take Christianity as ideology or philosophy, that's a mistake, because it's a system of life. It's a worldview. Worldview is not a theory. Worldview is how a person sees and experiences the reality and put that into their own existence with the interpretation and evaluation. So that's no longer a theory. Because Christianity is a worldview, theoretical perception would not do for Christianity. But there are some people, some so-called Christians, who put this Christianity onto the level of theory. For them, it is a philosophy, and it is an ideology, and it is the ethics. Ethics, it is empirical, but it does not reach the level of truth. Ethics is not truth. Truth is way above and beyond your ethics or morals. So though morality and ethics is empirical, for Christianity it is not enough. Then we have explicit and implicit. Explicit means it gives very specific details, while implicit means it takes the whole reality as a whole. So it's implicit, you take within and without, meaning explicit, it comes out of you, while implicit comes from outside. So that's how it means. And some people sees the reality from inside and out. So what I see is true. What I see is it matters. While implicit says what they see, what they tell me is more important than how and what I see. So there is a difference. And some people rather want to listen to others and give their ears to their other opinions. But when you do that, the danger is you are going to be influenced rather than necessary by others. But someone who says, what I see, what I view, what I feel is more important than what you feel or what they told me. You can be very subjective. You can be explicit. But there's also a danger, right? You can fall into your own ego. You can fall into your own limitation. So there's an advantage and disadvantage of both. So I cannot say, or we cannot say which is better than the other. Same for the empirical and theoretical as well. It depends on what reality that we are discussing about. When you try to perceive a reality, there are some other means than what we have discussed that develops or influences your worldview. First, people, the opinions, the stories, testimonies, what people tell you, what the people around you inform you is very important other than what you perceive. Because your perception is, again, influenced by the culture and the people around you. Whether you acknowledge it or not, whether you like it or not, the people around you are the primary source of your perception. Even though you may feel like you're seeing the reality in your own way, with your own worldview, with your own interpretation and evaluation, still, if you go back, there are, throughout your life, there has been many, many people who you don't even know, or who you even does not recognize, have influenced you greatly to build your worldview. And the books, they are a very important part of your worldview. Because what you read, you are constantly evaluating. So reading many books, that helps you to worldview, to build your worldview. Okay? So books are a very key source, probably number 2 resource for formulating your worldview. And the media today, even though it's shallow than books, I believe even if media develops further, it's going to be still shallow than the books. The written, the printed letters are stronger than the image and sounds. So, but still, the media, the broadcasting, the TVs and the SNS on these things gonna influence you to build your worldview. And imagination. That's I think that's the key ingredients for making people not only creative in artistic ways, but it helps you to be a creative person, a unique person, because your imagination, it strengthens your worldview. without imagination, you cannot think of God. I mean, even though God is not just a dream or is a fantasy, it's real, God is real, but without imagination, you cannot talk about God, because it's not something that you see or touch. So imagination is a very important source of creating an worldview. Okay, let's go. That closes lesson 3, and we'll continue with lesson 4. 아직 안 끝났어. Okay, lesson 4. Worldview is founded. Worldview is not only perceived by each individual or a family or a community. Before it is perceived, it is founded, meaning it is already there. Before you are born, before you have your own worldview, there was millions and millions of different worldviews. And these worldviews come together to found a cultural worldview, or ethnic worldview, or religious worldview. So, worldview has been there throughout history. That's what I mean by worldview is founded. Okay, we'll continue this. So, founded worldview. What do we mean by the worldview that is founded? It means it's fundamental and basic to human existence. So I told you that this worldview has to do with the reality and so this reality and the existence are two major pillars, or two major core elements in defining or in conceptualizing worldview. So worldview has to do with the understanding reality and trying to formulate or manage your existence. Without worldview, you cannot manage your existence. And for your existence, these are fundamental and basic. So worldview is very basic and fundamental to our own existence. How and why? Okay, here are the reasons. Number 1, it provides you with a blueprint. Blueprint is a diagram that shows the plan for a building or house or a factory or even a machine. So even the chairs, the computers that we are using, and the TV, these begins with a blueprint. It's not actually the reality itself, but it kind of shows the reality in a certain way so people can understand. So blueprint, if you're a technician, electronic person, and if you see that the schematics, what we call the schematics, then you know, even though you're many miles apart, you know what you are talking about. And to build even a simple house, say you're building a dog house for your pet, your dog, then you need a blueprint, whether it's in your head or whether it's on your paper, you need a blueprint. So blueprint is a plan, a drawing of a plan, or a simplified version of your plan. And the worldview provides that plan, a blueprint for the reality and your existence. So it's fundamental. Without these blueprint, your reality, you cannot perceive or communicate that with others, or you cannot, you cannot bring your existence into reality. So that means your life is going to be just happy. See, it is sad in these days, modern days, many young people who are growing up in this culture, they do not have blueprint for the existence or reality. And they don't believe in nothing, actually. They believe in something, but their belief is all fragmented. It's never been put into a blueprint. So that means there's no fundamental in their existence, which is very dangerous thing. It's very risky not to have any fundamental on your life. That's why people go for drugs and alcohol and fun and games. And not that those electronic games, but games. So this young people without a blueprint means young people without a solid worldview. Because the society and culture fail to provide these fundamentals to the young people. And they only say, you are going to make your own choice, you're going to chart your own life. Okay, that's a good thing to say, but you have to have at least certain guidelines, the maps. Okay. Also, it's a framework. When you build a house, a building, you begin by putting a framework with a foundation. So framework and foundation and platform goes together. So put the foundation and you put the framework, and that creates a platform to put other materials on that site, and thus become a house or building. And in your life, not having worldview is not having a framework. Even though you have all the materials, wood, panel, nail, if you don't have this fun blueprint, And if you not make those wood into the frameworks, if you do not put those stones into the foundation, you're not going to be able to build a house, or in our case, our existence. The reality is there, providing all the resources that we need, but we need to put that into a certain framework and foundation and platform according to the blueprint. Thus, we will have our existence, not just an existence, but meaningful existence. And the Bible, for us Christians, for Christianity, Bible provides us fundamental. It provides blueprint. It tells you what the life is about, where we came from, why we were created, and what the purpose of life is. And it's not just a plan, but it is the plan. It is the blueprint, and it's called truth. Because truth is above everything. Ethics, no. Ethics is there, right there. Philosophy is right there. Ideology is right there. But truth is way above that, because it includes everything, and it's personal. So when something becomes personal, interpersonal, it does have big value, because God created us to be a person with the freedom to decide, freedom to choose, freedom to plan. Because our life, the existence, is not programmed. It's not programmed like some religion believes. It is not given. It is not charted. You are to make your own plan. You have responsibility and freedom. Freedom and responsibility to make that plan, the print, and build your own framework and your foundation and your rooms. You have your own free will to decorate your room the way you want. That's Christianity. They don't tell you what color your room should be, where your bed should be placed, and what to eat and what to dress. Christianity doesn't do that. But Christianity does give you the blueprint, and that's how you're going to direct your existence, right? These things are not visible at one glance or one look. You have to study carefully, because they are underlying and hidden. When something is fundamental, it's not visible right away. So if you're trying to find the fundamental of a person, you cannot look at that person and say, his belief or her belief is this. You cannot do that. You have to know that person by talking to them, spending time with them. And without that process, you cannot find out that underlying or hidden framework or foundation. So worldview is basically as underlying. First, underlying principles. When you are an adult, you should and you must have certain principles in your life. And that principles has to be coherent, is woven together as a system, not conflicting one another. If this principle inside you conflicts with that another principle inside you, then your principle is not coherent. And is fragmented, it is conflicts one another, then it's not a worldview yet. And that tells you that you are not mature. A mature person has a coherent principles, not just one principle, but many principles working together to create a big whole system called truth. So, even if it's not the Christian truth that as I recommend it to be, but it has to be your truth. At least it has to, kind of work together inside you and help you to be in peace. If you don't find peace in your principles, those are not working principles. And these principles are not visible. You don't write your principle on your forehead and tell others these are my principles, or even you cannot verbalize your principles. It's difficult to verbalize your principles to others. And the only way that principles are revealed is by your own action, your behavior, your decision, your personality, your characters. These things show your principles. And thus it is underlined. And your job as a Christian leader, when I talked about leadership, the leader is to find out these hidden principles in a person. By doing that, you are able to either correct or modify, help to correct or help to modify that principles inside that person. You cannot make that happen, but you can help that to happen. That's my principle as a Christian leader. You cannot force or make someone to do something, but you are only there to assist and help and give advice. That's as much as you can do. You cannot be involved too deeply and make decision for someone else. And that's called manipulation. And sadly, many Christian leaders, so-called pastors today, are doing that, exactly doing that, manipulating their people. So, they have their own justification saying that's God's way. No, that's not God's way. God's way is before the details, the principle comes first. Before the actions and orders and the commandments, these principles comes first. The principle is to be interpersonal, meaning that that person has to become a person. Person is the one who has the freedom to make that own decision for himself or herself and be responsible for it. And if you cannot be responsible for your own decision, you are not a mature person, and you have a limited right or freedom. So to exercise full freedom, you have to be mature, meaning that you take the responsibility of your own decisions and actions. When that happens, you have a principle in you. Most important principle, taking your own responsibility, because you are a person, you have that freedom to exercise. And it's like a plant roots, and it's like the frame of an automobile, and it's like a bones in your body. These are the underlying hidden. But without those bones, you cannot stand like here. Without a car having the frames, you cannot put the engine on it or the driver's seat on it. And a plant without roots, it cannot grow. So these are essential and critical and necessary. So the worldview that we are talking about is not visible, it's fundamental, it's hidden, and it's been there sins if even before you were born, but these are key and important. Okay, so we'll stop here today, and I'll see you guys next week, and have a good week, and I'll come to see you again next week. Bye, everyone.